Could you follow up on the general legal theories that are used to connect the nurses and the hospital when negligence causes a baby's HIE injury? I just spoke with the mom offline about this very issue. That question actually came from my law partner, Renee, after a recent video that I did about the independent duty that labor and delivery nurses have during childbirth. And in that video, we talked about how a nurse can't just simply defer to a doctor when mom or baby is showing signs of distress, and how invoking the chain of command can make all the difference. And when my partner raised this question, it really highlighted something that many parents want to understand. When a baby is left with an HIE diagnosis, how does the law actually connect what the nurses did or didn't do back to the hospital itself? For families, that question often comes with a lot of fear and confusion, and that's because when something happens inside a hospital, it can feel like the system is going to protect itself, and you're wondering who is truly going to be responsible for what went wrong. When a baby suffers an HIE brain injury, it's rarely going to be because of one single mistake. It's usually going to be a chain of missed warnings or poor communication or a delay in acting when the baby was showing signs of distress. And the law recognizes that reality. It understands that nurses aren't just there to just follow orders. They have an independent duty to monitor, to speak up, and to act when mom or baby is in danger. And when that duty is breached, there are going to be legal theories that can connect the nurse's negligence to the hospital. One of those theories is called respondeat superior, and that's a Latin phrase meaning let the master answer. In simple terms, it means that the employer, which is going to be the hospital, can be legally responsible for the negligent acts of its employees while they're doing their jobs. So if a nurse misses signs of fetal distress or fails to go up the chain of command when a doctor isn't responding to a dangerous situation, that failure or those failures can be imputed to the hospital. The nurse was working for the hospital, doing the hospital's work, and the law says that the hospital has to answer for that negligence. This is important because what it does is it allows families to hold the hospital accountable instead of being forced to go after individual nurses on their own. Now, there's another theory called agency, and this is when one can apply, this can apply to hospitals, when they try to say that certain providers like nurse, midwives, or other types of temporary staff aren't actual employees, but they're independent contractors. If the hospital controls how that person does their work or presents them as part of the hospital team, the law can still treat them as agents of the hospital. So the hospital can't hide behind labels when it looks and acts like these people are part of its staff. And that's why one of the first steps in these cases is trying to figure out exactly how everyone is connected to the hospital. And once you understand those relationships, it becomes easier to be able to see who was truly responsible. Beyond that, hospitals can also be liable for their own direct negligence, and that's going to include things like understaffing or failing to train nurses to recognize fetal distress or not enforcing certain types of things with their chain of command policy or when doctors aren't responding appropriately. So in many HIE cases, it's not just that one nurse made a mistake. It's that the hospital also may have created an environment where these mistakes were allowed to happen. Now, with all of this, every state has its own rules about how these legal theories work and how responsibility is shared between hospitals, nurses, and doctors. So what I'm sharing here is just general education and not specific legal advice for your specific state. But knowing that these legal connections can exist can help families have some clarity. It will help them be able to understand that the law doesn't just look at one person's mistake. It looks at the system and how that mistake was allowed to harm a baby. Again, I'm Marcus Boston. If you have any other questions about your baby's HIE brain injury at birth or a subsequent CP diagnosis from a medical legal standpoint, don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. You can find out more information about me in my profile. If you're watching this video on certain apps, you can send me a DM and we could chat a little bit about your story, or you could just wait and watch the picture that follows the end of this video. All right, that's going to be it for today's quick educational video. Have a good day, everybody.